Good evening from sacred space at Titania's realm. It's the 10th of June 2025 and the time is 5:29 p.m. The sun is just tiptoeing over the horizon, and the sky, I'm looking out towards the south, is a wonderful teal blue, almost greenish but more of a teal blue colour, like the school uniform I was forced to wear at Wellington Girls College for 5 years. Was it 5 years? Let me think. I left at the end of 6th form. 4 years. Yes, four years. Yes, we mustn't add on an extra year onto things. It's bad enough that I'm aging rather disgracefully, babies. But anyway, not really. But I've had a lovely day today. I cleaned both Kermie and Little Beau's cages, which is, quite an epic task because Kermie's cage is large and has to be tipped on the side, and I have to climb inside it to clean it. I'm thinking seriously about getting a better cage, but money, 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 life is funny in a rich woman's world. But anyway, look, his cage is fine. It's clean, and I didn't put them outside today, although it was a lovely sunny day, because it felt quite cool, and now I feel bad that I didn't. But anyway, they sat and watched me clean their cages separately because I have to, take turns with them, putting them in the spare small cage. And Kermie was quite intrigued by the whole process. He was greatly amused when he saw me head down, ass up, crawling inside his cage, trying to wash it down. It wasn't all that dirty, but you got to wash it. I noticed their cages don't get as dirty as Charlie's did because of her constant epic rainbow lorikeet diarrhea. Oh, the poor little love. I miss her so much. I really do. She was a unique bird. But the cages weren't too bad, but because these ones eat seed and sunflower seeds, there's always a lot of husks, and I bought a little dust-busting little vacuum cleaner thing to vacuum all their husks off the bottom of their cages and keep the floors clean, because, my cleaning lady, Righty, comes, Thursday mornings, but I've got to clean in between. It's quite an epic task. And I'm not fond of doing housework. It's why it got outsourced out, because, I wasn't all that really coping. But anyway, now I keep the floors clean because I don't want to be embarrassed when Rani comes and she has to clean up all the bird seed. But so I keep it clean in between. Not that she would complain, because it's her job to do, but I could see sort of a look of disapproval when I first got them, and I knew she was thinking, there'll be bloody seeds everywhere and I'll be forever cleaning that up. No, I clean it up in between and keep on top of it. So at the moment we've had the lawn mowing wrangles again today, but it's been resolved and a man's coming out on Thursday. So I'm happy about that because it was stressing me out. The grass situation here at Sacred Space is epic and ongoing stressor. So I'm glad someone's finally coming out to do that job. And what else did I do? I cleaned my air conditioner. It's supposed to be done once a month, so it came up on my calendar, my alert. I'll do that. And because, I had to get up on a chair and dust it and wash it down, I continued by washing down everything in this room. I just realised I didn't actually wash the ornaments on top of that little cabinet beside me, but I washed all the things on the little altar behind me, Papa Lepo's altar there. I washed everything down there because we don't want to upset the voodoo gods, make them live in squalor and dust and filth, because there'll be retribution. But anyway, I'm joking. I'm joking. Well, I'm not really joking, but I'm not really that worried. But, you know, it's a bit disrespectful to have little altars up to, you know, other people's gods and then let them sit in dirt. I thought that's not nice. You know, the Holy One in all manifestations wouldn't like me disrespecting his his creations, his other gods either. So, you know, we've got to work with what we've got to work with. So I also spent the day after I did the lounge room washing everything down. It's amazing how dirty everything gets, but we've got a house being built 2 doors up and get a lot of filth from that. Oh, it grinds my gears. When will it end? Apparently the neighbours behind me are going to knock their house down soon, rebuild there, so there'll be more filth. It's just constant. But you know, what can you do? Gentrification of the neighbourhood. They're all just waiting for me to pop my clogs, literally pop my clogs, so that they can knock my house down, remove all the asbestos, and put some giant mausoleum up on this land. I bought a lotto ticket hoping that maybe I'll be the person that knocks this house down and buys the land and builds a lovely house on it. But I'd have to win, I'd have to win the lotto to do that. So, but you know, psychedelic dreamers dream. It's what they do. They're dreamers. There's nothing wrong with dreaming big. Might happen one day. Miracles happen every day, don't they? So, anyway, I went into the back studio with the birdies because I'd cleaned their cages, and I thought, well, while I'm in this cleaning mood, which, by the way, doesn't happen very often, I thought I'll just carry on and wash all the dust off everything. And there I actually cleaned the little window that was really grimy. I don't know what was so grimy. I think it's all the muck coming over from the building site. So I washed that down. I washed both blinds. I washed everything down. It was a very productive afternoon. And then I felt quite tired. I thought about going having a little lie down, a little nanny nap, turn into a little old lady. No, little old ladies can happen, but not today. So I carried on. I made some spring rolls for an early dinner at about 4 o'clock. And I've been watching wonderful YouTube videos about the Celts and about Scottish and Irish Gaelic culture. And it's been very interesting. Makes me feel like going to Scotland, actually. My daughter had a lovely time in Scotland when she went there. She was only there briefly on a tour, but she said she got out at the back of the tour bus and everyone, the tour group, went in another direction. And she's very psychic, my daughter. She gets it from me and my bloodlines. So she said I felt drawn to walk to the behind the bus, to the back, and she said I kept walking distance, get some space from all the noise of all the other tourists. And she said I was all alone, and this beautiful stag came out and just stood and studied her. I said, oh, that's a sign. That's a sign, being made welcome to the ancestral lands, because we've got Scottish ancestry on my father's line. The Andersons. The Anderson line. And yes, I said that was a wonderful gift. She said, oh, Mummy, it was just so magical, and I was communing with this enormous stag, and he's just looking into my eyes, and I was happy to hear that, because we love animals. We're very gifted and we love animals. But it was a beautiful welcome to the ancestral Scottish lands. I'm not sure exactly where in Scotland they were when that happened, but anyway, she said it was the most beautiful experience, and I was so happy for her. I said, then what happened? She said, oh, then all the people saw him and all came running and he ran away. I said, oh, that'd be bloody right, wouldn't it? humans ruin everything. But so you had that magical moment alone with that stag for a reason, Crystal. It's a sign and it's a blessing. And things did improve for her actually on the remainder of her sojourn there in the UK. So, yes. Anyway, continuing on from that, I think I will now read to you Man, Myth and Magic. Do you like my new lipstick? It's black, it's a black base. Can't really see it with this camera that has me all constantly in glamour shots of all blurred out. But anyway, I've got my favourite glitter on top of it, and anyway, I thought I would give it a go. I haven't got it. I've got some new mascara on, but it's very light. You can't really notice it either. But anyhow, c'est la vie, babies. All that money I spent on nonsense. Little old lady, like time fighting and space banditing and oxygen thieving, but well, I'm alive. I'm allowed to feel glamorous and beautiful in my own weird ways. And why not? What else am I going to do with my time? Just keep thriving, babies. Just keep thriving. For no other reason. And it drives my enemies insane with envy to see I'm still breathing and still kicking on and yeah, living my best life, babies. Not quite, because I've got my bedroom, I've got the kitchen, and I've got the spare room to still wash all the dust off. And that'll probably have to happen tomorrow so I can get into the flow and have everything all clean for a change. Anyway, never mind. Oh, and I need to wash my car, which is very, very filthy. Seriously. I hate washing my car. It's so boring. But, every now and then I get slapped up the side of the head literally by the spirit world because my car, the number plate equates to the name for the Ein Sof, which is God. And he's given up smacking me up the side of the head about cleaning that car, but that's because he knows, that energy knows that I know that it's got to be done. It's got to be done soonish. I thought about doing it this afternoon, but look, honestly, it's cold. It's cold out there. I don't want to be out there with a bucket of water and soap scrubbing the car. It's just madness, isn't it? It's got to be another way. One of those car wash places. I'll have to think about that. I'm stingy about spending money on car washes because it's pointless when you can do it yourself with a bucket of water and probably a better job too. But why am I going on about washing the car? Because my angels are probably about to smite me for making, as I said, don't want to upset Papa Legbar sitting in filth. Well, the Ein Sof doesn't like having his chariot looking filthy when I'm driving around in his little hobbit witchy representative on earth, his little mad little shaman. I mean, you have to laugh. I'm just so defiant. But it'll get done. It'll get done, people. When? I don't know. Right. Today's reading entry in this encyclopedia is Astrology. What am I doing here? By the gods. Got distracted by something. So there's been a message for me. Who's that? Dominoes. They used to be cheap on the Tuesdays, but they're not now. Well, they kind of are, but you got to pick up and then it won't work. I don't know why, but my orders won't work, so I can't be bothered. Anyway, Pizza's bad for me, people. I've already had spring rolls, it's enough oil today. So I'll delete that and I'll calm my farm. And we'll carry on with reading. I know, it can be a bit like that when you come to my channel. You never know what's going to happen, do you? Joy's hanging out with the Tanya for 2 or 3 hours. Right, today's entry is Astrology. Buried in the earth lies evidence of our past. On its surface we live in the present, and it has long been believed that in the sky the stars predict our future. The zodiac is a circular band in the sky through which the planets are seen to move. It is divided into 12 equal sections known as the signs of the zodiac. In astrology, a planet's influence varies according to which part of the zodiac it is occupying. Left, the Planispherium Copernicus, a chart of the heavens, circa 17th century, showing the zodiac signs in the outer ring, and above, the planets were also thought to influence the seasons. 17th century chart illustrating the Earth's position in relation to the Sun during the year shows planetary spheres of influence. First of all, I'll show you the one, what was it called? The Planispherium Copernicus, which is rather beautifully decorated and painted, and there's Aries and Taurus and Gemini and so forth and so forth. Cancer, what's that? Don't know, should be Virgo, shouldn't it? Anyway, on we go and on we go and on we go. No, it's not Virgo, it's Cancer looks more like a lobster, looks more like Scorpio, but it does say here Cancer. Anyway, Libra, Virgo. Scorpio. Well, anyway, I'm trying to work it out. It's a bit confusing. You know, the good old days. The good old days, creating order out of chaos. I was about to say anarchy out of chaos, but no, it wasn't anarchy at all. Oh, there's a llama there. There's a llama and an alpaca. And there's the bear, which will be Ursu Minor. And, well, and here's the 4 seasons and the planetary effects according to whoever wrote that. Astrology is the alleged art or science of judging the influence of the planets in the solar system upon human affairs. A horoscope is a diagram showing the geocentric positions of the Sun, Moon and planets. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune and Pluto, which has recently been, no longer considered a planet anymore, which is a bit rude when you think about it, just because he's small. You're allowed to be small, people of Earth. Us small people take umbrage at that. Don't eviscerate us, people of Earth. Just saying. Geocentric means seen as if the planet Earth were at the centre of the solar system. For the sake of convenience, in astrology the Sun and Moon rank as planets. All the planetary positions must be calculated in relation to a given moment of time and a specific geographical coordinate, expressed in degrees and minutes of latitude, north or south of the equator, and longitude, east or west of the meridian of Greenwich. The horoscope itself represents a simple statement of certain astronomical facts, and as such is an objective, scientific document. In this context, one must exclude the 12 so-called houses, whose areas can be calculated according to any one of half a dozen or more highly speculative mathematical procedures. The supposed significance of the houses will be discussed later in this article. While the horoscope itself can purport to be a scientific diagram, an essentially unscientific activity begins when the astrologer attempts to make deductions based on the zodiacal positions of the planets, the presence of a planet or planets in one or other of the 12 houses, and certain angular relationships between one or more planets. Today, almost everyone in Western Europe and the USA knows his zodiacal sign, meaning the sector of the zodiac through which the sun was passing when he was born. The zodiac is a notional band of sky representing the sun's annual path through the fixed stars. The concept of the zodiac was evolved during the Babylonian era. This ancient measuring device consists of 12 sectors, each measuring 30 degrees. The 30-degree sectors are each named after fixed star constellations: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. If a person says that he was born under Taurus, it means that his birth occurred between 21st of April and 22nd of May, when the sun would have been anywhere between 0 degrees to 29 degrees Taurus. If, however, he states that he was born on 10th of May 1950, the sun's position was at about 19 degrees Taurus, which is more specific. My daughter's birthday is the 10th of May 1987, the younger one. Finally, in the case of a birth at exactly noon, Greenwich Mean Time, on that day, the sun was at 19 degrees 15 something 17 15 feet 17 inches. I don't know what those little diagonals mean, apart from something to do with latitude and longitude, I guess. Taurus, which is even more precise. The theories of scientific astrology require the horoscope to be calculated upon the basis of an accurate time and, as has been mentioned, an identifiable geographical location. These are the requirements for a strictly individual horoscope. The astrological information published in newspapers and magazines does not refer to individual horoscopes. Truth or nonsense? The fact that so many people know their birth sign is a product of the mass circulation newspaper and periodical astrological journalism that began during the early 1930s. Those who have a detailed knowledge of the principles of astrology almost unanimously condemn this popular astrology as childish nonsense. Nevertheless, the daily forecasts and the feature articles in magazines have persuaded countless thousands that the stars may conceivably influence human destinies, and that an individual personality in some way reflects the psychological qualities traditionally ascribed to his or her zodiacal sign. As for the daily prognostications, it is obvious that by the law of averages, a proportion of the readership will suppose that this or that prediction has been fulfilled. All the same, we are confronted with a system which divides humanity into types based on astrological symbolism, and this is perhaps astrology's most interesting feature. Despite all its unsatisfactory qualities, scientific natal astrology, which means analysing your personality from your horoscope, as opposed to predicting future events, raises a great many fascinating, although probably insoluble, problems. Logically, the art should be dismissed as the obstinate survival of very ancient superstitious beliefs. However, it is possible that fairly accurate, although limited deductions can, in fact, be made from a natal or birth horoscope. What is surprising is the survival of a system of divination that was first developed in Babylon before the Christian era, and which eventually reached the West in the 12th century via Latin translations of Arabic texts in the 10th century, which were themselves based upon far earlier Hellenistic Greek texts, circa 150 BC to 350 AD. Interesting, isn't it? I'm just going to jump back and read the blurbs for the pictures presented here before I continue reading. Far left. The zodiac as we know it is a combined invention of the Egyptians and Babylonians. An ancient Egyptian map of the sky, the zodiac of Dendera, and left. Astrology originally developed in Mesopotamia and was more concerned with kings and peoples than with the destinies of individuals. A tablet giving astrological forecasts in cuneiform writing derived from observations of the moon. And right, the zodiac man from Les Très Riches Heures of the Duc de Berry shows the association between astrological signs and the parts of the human body. For example, people born under Leo, which controls the heart, are thought likely to suffer from heart trouble. Similarly, Aquarians may suffer from weak ankles and Librans from kidney troubles. Right, here's the ancient Mesopotamian and Babylonian zodiacs. This one looks almost Aztec to me too, or maybe Vedic too. Interesting. And here's the correlation between the signs and parts of the body. If we can just get my computer to shimmy in and focus. Focus. Kind of, sort of, but not quite. Aries is ruled by the head. The head is affected by Aries. That's why Arians get a lot of headaches and can have difficulties with that's to do with the brain. Right. The modern revival. The astrological tradition in the form that is encountered today consists of a huge collection of rules and procedures which have been transmitted through the centuries, although not without substantial alterations and reformulations. In the West, the contemporary astrological idiom represents an up-to-date version of the one current at the time of the Renaissance, when there was a widespread interest in astrology in educated circles. Just want to see whether that's not sitting right. People are grinds my gears when things aren't right. Better. Right, here we go. The invention of printing circa 1440 facilitated, it seems a very long time ago, doesn't it? 1440. Facilitated the circulation of material that had hitherto only existed in manuscript form and the publication of ephemerides, tables containing the daily noon positions of the sun, moon and planets. Astrology is still ranked as astronomy's twin sister and enjoyed equal respectability. It's interesting, isn't it? Educated men began to lose interest in astrology toward the beginning of the 17th century, when the discoveries of the first of the modern astrologers, including Galileo, Copernicus, and Kepler, were beginning to be understood. This increasing skepticism was evident in Europe, but not in England, where there was a noticeably lively interest in astrology during the second half of the 17th century. This was reflected by the large domestic output of textbooks and predictive almanacs. Astrology was already well underground in Europe during the 18th century, and in England the appearance of new textbooks dwindled to a trickle between 1700 and circa 1790. But while astrology was practically forgotten in Europe until the end of the 19th century, there were minor astrological revivals in England during the 1790s and 1820s, and an important one during the 1890s. The French did not rediscover the art until circa 1890, and the German revival began shortly before the First World War, which was in 1914. Indeed, if the British had not kept astrology alive when it was forgotten elsewhere, it might conceivably have disappeared altogether. The British and French revivals during the 1890s and the somewhat later German one were byproducts of a new and widespread interest in occultism, magic, the Kabbalah, and above all, H.P. Blavatsky's theosophical teachings. Alan Leo, 1860 to 1917. The first important modern astrological publicist and the author of a long series of popular textbooks, was above all a theosophical astrologer. This meant, in effect, that for Leo and his followers, astrology had a considerable esoteric or occult component. Even today, the ranks of the astrologers contain many who claim to be occultists. It was the Germans, in particular, who investigated and experimented with astrology with enormous energy and interest during the years between the two world wars. Furthermore, many of these people were highly educated men and women. Finally, they include the women in this book. It's the most misogynistic book I've ever read, but finally, the girls get a shout out. Babies. During the early 1930s, for instance, at least 30 German medical men practiced astrology, and there were undoubtedly many more whose names are unrecorded, while the German astrological movement contained the expected quota of charlatans and mild lunatics. A cultured and intelligent minority worked on the development of a new kind of astrology based, as far as possible, upon current academic, psychological, and typological concepts. My mother had my chart done when I was 11. And then she told the astrologer she wanted her money back, that he was a charlatan. And actually, he got nearly everything right, which didn't, of course, become obvious until I reached, to my late teens. But it's astonishing how many things he got right. Sometimes I read it and think that man was a genius, but my mother was a monster and demanded the money back. Wow. Anyway, he was a very kind man. I still remember him. He would have been in his late 20s, early 30s, sitting on our couch in our apartment in Elwood, which was a Draylon couch, which was black and it had orange and yellow and red stripes going down the middle of it. And it was a very nice couch, very comfortable to sit on. And I remember him sitting and looking really, really sweetly into my face, really studying me, my face more than anything else, asking me a few questions, I think just to get a feel about my energy and my personality, because he had the dry facts of my birth and the time of my birth and place of birth from my mother. He kind of interviewed me. And I remember looking at him thinking, why am I being interviewed? And why are you taking so much interest in me? But anyway, he was a very kind man, very kind young man, youngish man. Because to me he wasn't young, but And then he went away and did all that work, and then my mother basically screamed at him and told him that he was a charlatan and an idiot and she wanted the money back. And I remember being dreadfully embarrassed because I had a sense that he wasn't a charlatan at all, had actually quite honestly put a lot of work into that astrological chart and analysis of my personality and everything. He even accurately predicted that I would need a hysterectomy in middle age, and I think he was out by about 10 years. But he said there would be problems with he specifically said there would be problems with my sphincter muscles in the body, which is true. I have trouble with my bladder, I have trouble with my uterus and cervix. We hate to think, oh yes, I have reflux, so there's problems with that muscle leading into my stomach. He actually got that completely accurate. It's amazing, isn't it? A man who only met me once looked into my face and interviewed me a bit and then worked out my astrological chart. What amazing. The only thing he couldn't pinpoint was my career, and my mother was livid about that because she actually wanted to know what career I would have. But actually, much later, when I looked at it again in my 40s, I went, he's correct about not being able to pinpoint it because I never actually developed a proper career. Apart from owning my business with my husband when I was 23 when we migrated here and I bought the business. I haven't had a career to speak of. So he got that right too. He actually got that right, but he was skirting around it a bit. He knew that would annoy my mother, that he couldn't pinpoint an actual career, and it wasn't his fault because there was no career to bloody well pinpoint. People of Earth. Oh, small squire. Anyway. Jung and astrology. C.G. Jung, a Swiss German, whose renown as a pioneer in the field of analytical psychology almost equals that of Sigmund Freud, had a deep personal interest in astrology. In 1931, he observed that the cultural Philistines believed until recently that astrology had been disposed of long since and was something that could safely be laughed at. But today, rising out of the social deeps, it knocks at the doors of the universities from which it was banished some 300 years ago. Elsewhere, Jung wrote, "For those of my readers who are unaware of these things and think that I am exaggerating, I can point to the easily verifiable fact that the heyday of astrology was not in the benighted Middle Ages, but is in the middle of the 20th century, when even the newspapers do not hesitate to publish the week's horoscope. A thin layer of rootless rationalists reads with satisfaction that in the year 1723, Mr. So-and-so had a horoscope cast for his children, and do not know that nowadays the horoscope has almost attained the rank of a visiting card." Jung's remarks should be read in the context of the contemporary German astrological scene. While the knocks at the doors of the universities were too faint to be heard, a surprising number of Germans had a superficial knowledge of astrology. It is evident that Jung himself studied the horoscopes of some of his patients, not in order to predict their future, but because he believed that a natal horoscope could provide information of a purely psychological nature. For example, why an individual might be latently susceptible to a particular kind of neurosis. Theoretically, then, so I'm just kind of laughing about that. I don't know why. I don't know why that tickled my funny bone. Anyway, theoretically, then, if a medically trained psychologist can use astrology successfully for psychodiagnostic purposes, it could also be employed for personnel selection or to assess whether or not two people who intend to marry are temperamentally suited to one another. In Germany, the present writer has met professional experts on handwriting who are engaged by large firms to sift written applications for jobs and to identify the most promising applicants. Well, I'd be fucked then. I've always had terrible handwriting. Oh, I could have been a doctor with my handwriting. Except I can't do maths and sciences, but I would have made a wonderful doctor. Just saying. Have the personality for it, if not the aptitude. But a doctor must have aptitude, otherwise they kill people there. To take it very seriously indeed. Right. Some of them also take a look at the candidates' horoscopes as an additional check. On the continent, birth certificates are frequently required to be submitted in such cases, and on these, the birth time is stated, at least within about 15 minutes. Ah, that's what I wanted in my birth certificate. Sneaky buggers. British and American birth certificates do not record the birth time. In the absence of the latter, it is impossible to calculate a more or less accurate ascendant, and without the ascendant, the horoscope is incomplete. In the absence of a birth time, one can only erect the horoscope on the basis of noon Greenwich Mean Time for the day of birth, and so it could equally well apply to everyone else born on that day. Looking for the blurb, but there's no blurb. But anyway, here you have in this little box here, panel here, the signs and how they express when you write the signs down. So Aries looks a bit like a ram's horns, and Taurus is a circle with what looks like horns on top of it, and Gemini is two eyes pressed together like twins, and Cancer's a crab, but anyway, and on we go and on we go. Some of them get hard to relate to the actual sign, but others kind of make sense in a way. Right. Drawing a horoscope. The apprentice astrologer begins by learning the names of the 12 signs of the zodiac and the traditional qualities ascribed to each of them. The signs are shown above in Figure 1 in their conventional order, with the approximate date when the sun enters each sign. I'll just show you, because I'm not sure how all relates, but here we have the beginning of the drawing of the chart. Here we have don't know what we have there actually, and on it goes. Diagrammatically, a horoscope expresses, among other things, the idea of the sun rising in the east, that is, ascending above the eastern horizon at dawn, culminating or reaching its highest point in the sky at noon, setting in the west in the evening, and invisible below the horizon during the night. Figure 2 represents the sun ascending at dawn. Right, yes, I see the ascendant and the descendant there. Right, okay. They don't actually write figure 1, figure 2 because you can assume you're intelligent enough to work it out. Mama T's a bit tired from dust 0 calories. I hate dust. I hate it with a passion. But I hate all housework. So what am I complaining about? I've got it pretty good, people. The only thing I have to do is dusting, washing, stripping the bed sheets and changing. That's really all I have to do, and I'm still kvetching about it. Oh, I need to win the lotto. Full-time housekeeper and cook. I know I'm not actually expecting that. It's just a desire, people. My middle name is Desiree, after all. Have lots of desires. Most of them don't come to fruition. Just saying. Right, where were we? Figure 2. I'll read that again. Represents the sun ascending at dawn, reaching the medium coeli midheaven at noon, setting in the horizon or descendant, and below the horizon at midnight, imun coeli. It is particularly important to notice the ascendant, descendant, NC/IC axes because these form the so-called angles of a horoscope. I see. During the course of a 24-hour period, every one of the 360 degrees of the zodiac successively rises on the eastern celestial horizon. Roughly speaking, therefore, every 2 hours a new zodiacal sign is on the ascendant. In order to discover the ascendant, expressed for instance as 18 degrees 27 something, I don't know what that stands for, latitude, longitude, Leo rising, the astrologer must first calculate the MC, or midheaven. This is done with the help of an ephemeris and a few simple arithmetical computations. Even having trouble reading about it, never mind trying to work it out. Dear Goddess, I'm not that smart, obviously. Hello. At least I admit when I'm not smart. But I was smart enough to know when we were being conned by the convert. Just remember that, people of Earth. I was one of the few that saw through that BS. Once the MC has been identified, the degree of the ascendant can be found in the appropriate tables. The astrologer then fills in the angles mentioned above on the horoscope chart. The horoscope of K.E. Kraft, the Swiss who was wrongly supposed to have been Hitler's personal astrologer, will serve as a typical example for an abbreviated account of the procedure for calculating a horoscope. He was born at Basel, which happens to be in Switzerland, on 10th of May 1900. There's my daughter's birthday again, 10th of May. At 12:45 p.m. Central European Time. His sun was therefore in Taurus. Since all the information in an ephemeris is based on noon Greenwich Mean Time, it is necessary to convert CET, meaning Central European Time, to Greenwich Mean Time by subtracting 1 hour, giving a birth time of 11:45 a.m. Gets confusing, doesn't it? Basel is 47 degrees 34, whatever that dash stands for, north of the equator, and 7 degrees 40 east of Greenwich. Having established the sidereal star time, not clock time, for 11:45 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time and converted 7 degrees 40 east to minutes and seconds of time because Basel is east of the meridian of Greenwich, and we're required to know the local sidereal time. A reference to a table of houses for latitude 47 degrees north will show that Kraft's MC, which was, what was MC again? Medium coeli, height of noon, was 24 degrees Taurus, and the related ascendant was 1 degree 43 Virgo. So he was also heavily influenced by Virgo. The next step is to establish the actual zodiacal positions of the planets at 11:45 a.m. on 10th of May 1900. The birth time was so close to noon that, with the exception of the moon, for which a small adjustment, 7-27 is required, one could take the actual noon positions direct from the ephemeris. I'm not happy that I don't know what those mean. Like normally they mean, feet and inches and measuring distance, but I don't know what they mean in astrological terms or longitude, latitude terms. So I feel stupid now. It's causing me a bit of distress. Don't mind me while I take a little moment to sulk about my own stupidity. But it's not stupidity, it's just wasn't educated in that field, obviously. One could take the actual noon positions direct from the ephemeris. If the birth had occurred at, say, 7:45 p.m, some further simple arithmetical calculations would be needed. I'm going to crawl into bed after this. I feel like I'm going to have a fucking breakdown. That's how much I hate being stupid, people of Earth. Can imagine how I hate being played for a fool, made to look stupid in my love life when just trying to express a few freaking astrological terms sends me batshit crazy. But moving on. At 11, you have to laugh. At 11:45 a.m. on 10th of May 1900, the planetary positions were as shown in Figure 3. A real man who loved me would never have done that anyway. Simples. Doesn't take rocket science to work that bit out. Black bees. Right, where were we? Here we have another chart with I don't know what those are actually. Let me just read this out. It has already been mentioned that the division of the horoscope into 12 houses has no strictly astronomical foundation. The houses are numbered anti-clockwise from the ascendant. The cusps, boundaries of the 1st, 4th, 7th and 10th houses are identical with the 4 angles, ascendant, Immun Coelia, descendant and median coeli. The boundaries of the remaining houses will vary according to the mathematical system of house division employed. As a result, one astrologer will show the sun and say, the 3rd house. Do you notice that the more stupid I feel, the more sexy I make my voice sound just to impress you all, boy chicks? Because failure is not an option, boy chicks. Please don't kill me. I'm not really a useless eater like, Straub or that other motherfucker Gates wishes I could be. Please don't write me off as stupid. I wasn't so stupid and see right through your ugly game, your ugly genocidal motherfucking games. But that was a gift given to me from long-term, endemic, cataclysmic, cumulative childhood and adulthood trauma, while the sane ones got taken for a row. Interesting that, isn't it? Including scientists and doctors and people who are highly educated, all bought into that biscuit. So when I feel dumb, I remember that when it really mattered, when it came down to something that was really vital to my body autonomy and my medical safety and my very soul, I was intelligent when it really mattered. But then, to be fair, I probably, was gifted wise counsel from my spirit people who advised me from time to time on how to keep my head high and keep marching forwards through life, people of Earth, no matter what, no matter who. Right, here we go. They would only arrange for me to win the lotto so I could buy my own house, or better yet, migrate to a nicer country where I'm safe and treated with honour and kindness and basic bloody respect. Where could that be on planet Earth, people of Earth? I don't know, but Scotland seems to be calling me lately. It keeps coming up the last few days on my YouTube and on Facebook, and the ancestors are calling me, I guess, the Scottish ancestors. It's a bit odd. But we'll go with it. They know best what is my next direction to move into. Who loves me and who has my back, my front and my sides too. Anyway. The boundaries of the remaining houses will vary according, and I'm not necessarily meaning a human mortal person, man either, could be one of my ancestors or whoever it is, that person is Scottish. Every now and then they let themselves remind me of their presence in my life, even if it's only very ephemeral and not quite tangible. They just remind me who they are, where they are, sort of, kind of. It's complicated. I can't explain it. There's been a lot of reminders in the last 2 days. I had very unusual dreams again, and which I shared on Facebook, but I'm not going to repeat for YouTube. But yeah, it was lovely dreams, very lovely dreams. Going travelling with someone, it was very nice. Well, it happened in real life, but it was nice to dream it. The boundaries of the remaining houses will vary according to the mathematical system of house division employed. As a result, one astrologer will show the sun in, say, the 3rd house, while another working on an identical chart will have it in the 2nd. Most astrologers happily ignore this inconsistency. Furthermore, the mathematics of house division require a knowledge of spherical trigonometry. Hence, the majority of astrologers are content to use tables of houses and are uninterested in the mathematical background. Figure 4 shows Kraft's horoscope with the 12 houses calculated according to the Placidus system. Placidus or Placidus? Placid us system. I'm going to crawl into bed and sulk for the rest of the evening. People are there. Do with the Jack Daniels and Coke now. No, I don't need alcohol to calm my outrage that I'm sometimes stupid. If I did that, I'd be an alcoholic. I'd never crawl out of bed ever again. Just saying. Anyway, finally, there are people coming home from work. I wonder who that car was sometimes. Finally, there are the so-called aspects, which are certain angular distances expressed in degrees between any 2 or more planets. The aspects mainly considered are conjunction 0 degrees, square 90 degrees, trine 120 degrees, sesquiquadrate 145 degrees, opposition 180 degrees, semi-square 45 degrees, sextile 60 degrees. Figure 5 shows Kraft's horoscope with the addition of the more prominent aspects. For example, the moon is square 90 degrees. Both Venus and Saturn and sextile 60 degrees ascendant. Venus is in opposition to Saturn. We're just talking about this man's chart here. It's not true of everyone. Let's try and get a bit closer. The key to the code. To sum up, a horoscope erected upon the basis of a known birth time and geographical coordinate contains the following factors: 12, 30 degree zodiacal sectors, 12 times 30 equals 360 degrees. 10 planets in their respective zodiacal positions, 12 houses, the boundary of the first being the ascendant. 4 angles, ascent and descendant, MC/IC, which is the mid, noon and night, the medium coeli and the imum coelis. Right, I've got to stick to the facts, people are there. The planetary aspects. Man, I could do with sex right now just to distract me from my own stupidity, but that would create a whole different level of stupidity, so we won't be going there. It's funny how that thought just drifted through my mind. Astrology and sex. What's that got to do with the price of fish? I don't know. Oh, you have to laugh. Right. Oh, you just have to laugh. We have then a diagram that purports to record an astral moment of time, but expressed in a I just had a funny thought about why I had that thought. Oh, never mind. Ding! Shuck it off where it belongs. But expressed in a symbolical code which must now be deciphered. This is the most difficult task of all. The astrologer works on the basis of a number of assumptions. 1, that the Tanya will behave when you throw her into the mix. 2, that the Tanya will tolerate bad behaviour directed at her because you think she's a victim and you find out otherwise. 3, and we could go on, but we won't, because I just don't give a fuck actually. No one fucks with the Tanya if they have half a brain. I might be stupid in some aspects, but I'm no fool and I'm not to be trifled with. Number 1, that each planet works or operates in a different and characteristic manner, hence the adjectives martial, Mars, mercurial, Mercury, saturnine, Saturn, and jovial, Jupiter, good old Jupiter. It is supposed that a planet's influence will be particularly strong if it is close to an angle and in particular to the ascendant and MC. What was MC again? Medium coeli, ascendant and the moon position. In Kraft's case, Neptune, Pluto and the Sun are all dominant because they are near to the MC. Yes, I can see that in that chart. Right. His moon is possibly sufficiently near to the ascendant also to be assessed as dominant. I wouldn't say that. He's right down the other side of the chart. See, this is how I get confused. I'm already disagreeing with what they're saying here and I don't even know what I'm looking at. Dear goddess. 2. That a planet reflects the qualities of the zodiacal sign in which it is placed. Hence, Mars in Gemini will not have the same meaning as Mars in Scorpio. 3. That a planet will operate according to its house position. Thus, Venus in the 10th can suggest one thing and Venus in the 5th another. 4. That their angular relationships or aspects will modify the influences of the planets concerned. The art of interpretation involves the combination of all the available evidence, and, as we have mentioned, this is where the difficulties begin. There are countless astrological manuals or cookbooks which provide guidance of a kind for every conceivable factor. For instance, the novice scribbles, Sun in Taurus in the 9th house, Mars in Aquarius in the 6th house, Sun square Mars. According to the manual he uses, he will now have to consider anything from a bald and very brief statement to an essay of up to 500 words. So he jots down his own interpretive material and is then uncertain how to combine it together. If he happens to be acquainted with the person whose chart he is studying, he will believe that this or that appears to fit, but will be left with a good deal of apparent nonsense. Most astrologers never get much beyond this cookbook method of interpretation. Impressive deductions. The few, I keep thinking I'm getting messages, but I'm actually not. Must be a buzzing in my ear or something. There's a flea in my ear, people. Someone's talking about me, putting a flea in my ear. Nothing to see here. My mama is still awesome, even though she's old. The few who seem to excel at horoscope interpretation, including the people who can often make quite impressive deductions on the basis of a blind diagnosis, meaning they have no personal knowledge of the native subject, do not have to depend on cookbook techniques, nor do they necessarily try to find an interpretation for every factor in the chart. They appear to have an almost instinctive knowledge of astrological symbolism and, at the same time, a highly developed intuition. The writer's own experience is that they can often deduce a few extremely salient facts of a purely psychological nature. The quality of their work is apt to become diluted when they attempt to wring the last shred of evidence from a horoscope. It is a fallacy to expect that the chart itself will reveal all. This does not appear to be the case. Nevertheless, when correctly interpreted, a horoscope will sometimes yield information of a surprisingly accurate nature. There are, of course, a great many logical objections to astrology. For example, suppose you are confronted with two identical horoscopes, the first for a manual worker and the second for a surgeon. Their respective social and educational backgrounds will necessarily be different. Then how can one talk in terms of identical fates? We are not so much concerned with fate, however, as with the possibility that each will react to life's psychological situations according to a common pattern, but always in relation to his social milieu and understanding. True that. See also Coverley book. Motherfuckers. There will, for example, be a very large element of free will. Should have exercised more of that, shouldn't you? Then I might still have had grandchildren. Or the people around me might not have been so badly affected that now I have difficulty more than ever conducting interpersonal relationships, which I've always had difficulty with because I'm not like other people. So thanks for that, by the way, making life even more of a hellscape than it ever was. To identify the common denominator is in any case extremely difficult. Thus, in astrological interpretation, very little is absolutely cut and dried. It would be tempting to write astrology off as a waste of time, were it not for case histories such as the one at the Institute for Border Areas of Psychology at the University of Freiburg in Western Germany. A team of qualified psychologists spent a fair number of hours interviewing a young juvenile delinquent who had been sent to them by the local police. Their extensive written reports were locked away in the Institute's safe. In the meantime, Herr Walter Burr, a local schoolmaster who was not only an expert astrologer but had some psychological training, was invited to study the boy's horoscope. Herr Burr did not know of the identities of either the young man or of the psychologists who had examined him, nor had he any access to their reports. Herr Burr's findings were very much in line with those of the psychologists, meaning that he was able to identify a disturbed and erratic personality. It is not that Herr Burr possessed some unknown astrological secret. One can only point to an unusually sound grasp of the principles of astrological interpretation, allied to what were evidently highly developed intuitive powers. Here it is only possible to provide the briefest possible summary of some basic interpretive material. It is by no means definitive and gives only a fragmentary idea of astrological concepts. The planets, sun, the living being, the physical body, psychic energy, the male principle, moon, the soul or psyche, fantasy and feeling, change and fluctuation, tides and months. Mercury, intelligence, reason, movement, associative or connective function, communication, Mercury as the messenger of the gods. Venus, love, art, physical attraction, sentiment, sentimentality, and sex. So earlier I was having a Venusian moment. It quickly passed, but it was there. It was there. You saw it. Only because I told you about it, but it was there. It was there. It's still tucked away under there somewhere. Kept very much oppressed and suppressed because I'm waiting for the one. The one, people of Earth. Sniff. It's been a long, bloody wait. Mars. Action, energy, impulsion, aggressive function, libido. So maybe it was Mars that was twitching at me earlier. Mars, the god of Whoa. Jupiter. Expansion, richness, material or metaphysical. Health, humour, developing function. Saturn. Limitation, contraction, concentration, inhibition, separation, maturity, loss, parting and death, Saturnine temperament, restrictive function. It's interesting because those were the two planets, the symbols that were shown to me in alchemy when I was at Ecstatic Dance at, I think it was October, November 2019, just before the COVID monstrosity came along, and I got busy with learning silversmithing because I realised I have to find my way through this somehow, and if nothing else it kept me distracted from all that evil nonsense. Anyway, Uranus, suddenness, revolution, violence, transmutation, magic and alchemy, the occult arts, creative function. Neptune, susceptibility, fantasy, romanticism, mysticism, deception and self-deception, psychic powers. Pluto, power, demagoguery, dictators, the masses. Signs of the zodiac: Aries, courage, impetuosity, energy. Taurus, patience, persistence, obstinacy. Gemini, progressiveness, cleverness, instability. Cancer, inspiration, sensitivity, evasiveness. Leo, dignity, breadth of mind, power, pretentiousness. Virgo, reason, logic, exactitude, pedantry. That explains why he did that thing with my glass. It's been pedantic. Interesting. Libra, harmony, evaluation, trivialities. Scorpio, profundity, insistence, roughness. Sagittarius, justice, propriety, sophistry. Capricorn, independence, abstraction, stubbornness. Aquarius, spirituality, conviction, illusion. Pisces, compassion, tolerance, indolence. The 12 houses. 1. Ascendant, development of personality, environment, childhood, physical body and constitution. 2. Material possessions and money. 3. Family relationships, communication. Well, mine must be fucking obliterated then. No use being angry about it. Just accept it and move on, babies. 4. Parental home, hereditary characteristics, which must also be obliterated in my chart too. 5. procreation, sexuality, pleasure, risks, speculation. 6. Servants, health. 7. The community, partnership, marriage, open enemies, as opposed to the ones that stab you behind your back. Sometimes I prefer that when my enemies are out in the open, at least I know what I'm dealing with. See also COVID epoch. 8. Accidents, death, inheritances, the wife's or husband's money. 9. Spiritual life, philosophy, religion, travel. 10. Vocation, profession, public life. 11. Wishes and hopes, friendships. 12. Secret enemies, seclusion, hospitals or prisons. Obscure difficulties. The aspects. Traditionally, there are good and bad aspects, angular relationships between two or more planets, the conjunction 0 degrees and opposition 180 degrees can be either good or bad according to the planets concerned. A conjunction would increase the mutual influence of the planets in question. Examples are Sun conjunct Saturn, difficulties in connection with the development of the personality. Moon conjunct Venus, intense emotional life, artistic leanings, self-love. Mercury conjunct Mars, quick mental reactions, aggressive instincts. Venus conjunct Uranus, strong emotional tensions, unusual preoccupations. Sounds a bit weird. What could be unusual? Let's not be preoccupied with that. The square, 90 degrees, and semi-square, 45 degrees, are supposed to be malefic, unfortunate or difficult aspects. The trine, 120 degrees, and sextile, 60 degrees, are said to be beneficent or fortunate aspects. An analysis. With hindsight, what can one make of Kraft's horoscope? See Figure 5. Here there is only room for an abbreviated analysis of a few of the factors. One might begin by examining the Sun, which is in Taurus, and in the 9th house in relation to his Virgo ascendant. At the same time, one would look for the dominant planets, those close to the midheaven and ascendant. It is true that Kraft was a Taurian, and his Sun, high in the midheaven, is dominant. The same also applies to Neptune and Pluto. Furthermore, one must ask how his Virgo ascendant affected his personality. Sun, Kraft's living being, or essence, in Taurus reflects patience, persistence, and obstinacy. He had the patience to embark upon vast, though fruitless, statistical projects, and as a young man persisted in this work in spite of his father's sometimes violent objections. He was a pig-headed person. In spite of all the negative evidence, he obstinately believed that he was destined to create a new kind of scientific astrology called cosmobiology, and after 1937, that he could successfully exercise his strange gifts in Hitler's Germany. Ascendant in Virgo, exactitude and pedantry. His temperament enabled him to attempt tasks that required these qualities. The dominant Neptune in Gemini in the 10th house, vocation, profession, public life, could reflect his markedly unstable character as a result of Neptune's fantasy, romanticism, mysticism, and self-deception. Pluto, power, is in a strong position. Kraft hoped for both power and influence. In a strictly limited sense, he achieved both, but died in a German concentration camp after a lengthy imprisonment. Kraft, who for years studied his own horoscope so closely, obviously had no idea of his fate. Moon in Libra square Venus in Cancer, also square Saturn in Capricorn, and Venus opposition Saturn, all may reflect Kraft's sexual complexes and unfulfillment, also his inhibitions regarding sexuality and pleasure. Sun in the 9th house, his preoccupation with a spiritual life. Neptune in the 10th house suggests Neptunian interests including astrology and the prophecies of Nostradamus as a vocation or profession. During 1940 to 1941, he worked on the Nostradamus texts for Goebbels' propaganda ministry. Isn't that interesting how accurate that was? That is interesting indeed. Moon in the 2nd house, his fluctuating attitude to money and material possessions. From these snippets, you can begin to understand that a full-scale interpretation must consist of an adequate synthesis of a great many fragmentary and hypothetical propositions. In the case of Kraft, one can now see how this or that would probably apply to him. An accurate blind diagnosis is far more difficult to achieve. Experience suggests that about 60% of any interpretation will appear to be correct, but the validity of the remainder can seldom be easily evaluated. Right, before we continue, I'll just show you the pictures on the left. It says, astrology is not only a Western phenomenon, it has a long history in the East. Left, a 13th century Persian astrological treatise showing Mars in the sign of the Ram in conjunction with Jupiter. The figures below represent the 5 planets: Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Mercury and Saturn. Looks like a fair bit of lopping off people's heads going on there too. Dear goddess. Right, and on the right, one of 8 astrological pictures from an Indian temple showing Saturn. And the picture on this page here, European interest in astrology is reflected in the 17th century French engraving showing an allegorical figure combining the signs of the zodiac with the works of such astronomers as Tycho Brahe and Copernicus. And just before we continue reading, I'll just read what's in the box. Some quotes here. Views on astrology. We are born at a given moment in a given place, and like vintage years of wine, we have the qualities of the year and of the season in which we are born. Astrology does not lay claim to anything more. C.G. Jung. A learned superstition which up to modern times has exercised over Europe and Asia a wider dominion than any religion has ever achieved. Franz Cumont, Astrology and Religion. It is now possible for astrologically guided unions to produce congenial children with desired characteristics and a reasonable certainty of sex, meaning what gender they will be. Myra Kingsley, Outrageous Fortune. Astrology does not offer an explanation of the laws of the universe, nor why the universe exists. What it does, to put it in simplest terms, is to show us that there is a correspondence between macrocosm and microcosm. In short, that there is a rhythm to the universe, and that man's own life partakes in this rhythm. It is not to discover what is going to happen to us. It is not to forestall the blows of fate that we should look to our horoscopes. A chart, when properly read, should enable one to understand the overall pattern of one's life. Henry Miller. We and the cosmos are one. The cosmos is a vast living body of which we are still parts. The sun is a great heart whose tremors run through our smallest veins. The moon is a great gleaming nerve centre from which we quiver forever. Who knows the power that Saturn has over us, or Venus? But it is a vital power, rippling exquisitely through us all the time. And if we deny Aldebaran, Aldebaran will pierce us with infinite dagger thrusts. He who is not with me is against me. That is a cosmic law. Also one of my mother's favourite sayings. But she was a narcissist and they're like that. Not all this is literally true, as men knew in the great past, and as they will know again. D. H. Lawrence, Apocalypse. Doesn't he write beautifully? He's one of my favourite authors, D.H. Lawrence. Wonderful author. Absolutely wonderful. I haven't read C.G. Jung's books per se, although I've learned a fair bit about him. Haven't read Franz Cumont. Haven't read Myra Kingsley's Outrageous Fortune, although it wouldn't be a bad idea. I don't think I've read Henry Miller either. I may have. Can't remember the title of the book though. But anyway, we continue reading. New systems in Germany. During the past half century, now bear in mind this book was written in 1970, two completely non-traditional astrological systems have been developed in Germany. The first was Alfred Witter's Hamburg School of Astrology with its 8 hypothetical trans-Neptunian planets, for which equally hypothetical ephemerides have been published. This system still has a number of devoted supporters. Latterly, some of its textbooks have been available in English in the United States of America. An interesting byproduct of the Hamburg School is the Ebertin system developed by Reinhold Ebertin, who does not use the hypothetical planets. Herr Ebertin has jettisoned most of the medieval astrological tradition, and you can operate his system without bothering about the houses or, for that matter, the so-called zodiacal influences. A dial apparatus is used in conjunction with the horoscope chart to identify planets and their midpoints on a common 90-degree axis. The only aspects considered are the conjunction, opposition, square, semi-square, and sesquiquadrate. The trines and sextiles are ignored. A fair amount of simple arithmetical work is required to establish a sequence of planetary equations from which a synthesis can be made with the help of Herr Ebertin's excellent manual, Combinations of Stellar Influences, which is available in English. It would appear that this heretical system works just as well as any traditional one, and at least a lot of old-fashioned and suspect ballast has been ruthlessly thrown overboard. No shortcut. There is no shortcut to even a modest knowledge of the principles of natal astrology. Once the novice has learned the elements of the art, a lot of time and experience is required before he will be able to free himself from the cookbook method of interpretation. Furthermore, in the majority of cases, which may be described as astrological insight, is never achieved. Nobody can teach this, and if it is not latent in an individual, it never emerges. It is almost always safe to ignore the pretensions of professional astrologers who publicise themselves energetically. The same applies to the pretensions of the more prominent members of the astrological establishment. The interesting practitioners, they exist and include some professionals, must prefer comparative anonymity. Pardon me. The professionals in particular are expected to provide accurate predictions, especially in relation to financial expectations, love affairs, marriage, and death. There are comparatively few full-time professionals in Great Britain, but more in France and Germany and many more in the USA. It is generally safe to disregard claims that this or that professional is the trusted advisor of financial magnates, captains of industry, and statesmen. Predicting events. It is true that there are records of impressively accurate predictions, but astrology's predictive techniques simply do not respond to scientific investigation. Indeed, as far as the latter is concerned, it is extremely difficult to formulate satisfactory tests even for ordinary natal astrology. A proportion of any astrologer's predictions will appear to come true, if only on the law of averages. The astrologers are quicker to proclaim their apparent successes than their numerous failures, but many of the more sensible amateurs do not bother to attempt predictive astrology and leave it to the professionals, for whom it represents a living. Astrology then has a very lengthy and even fascinating past. At a time when man has already begun to travel in outer space, and when it is likely that an attempt will be made to send a manned spaceship to Mars during the 1970s, it is reasonable to ask if astrology itself has any future. And I'm smiling because you can now do your astrological chart on the internet at the click of a button very, very quickly and easily. I had a man do that for me, right, on a Pal Talk. All he had to do was put my details into a computer, and then he threw a tantrum because he thought based on that we would have some kind of sexual liaison. I said, where'd you get that idea from? Oh, the work I've done preparing your chart's taken me days. What a load of bollocks. And all you have to do is go bing, bam, boom, and it's there. Anyway, cheeky bastard. Oh, he was obnoxious. He really was. It ended very badly. I got very, very disgusted with his chasing me in every spiritual room and Pal Talk, calling me names because I didn't want a relationship with him based on what actually. I thought we had a reasonably nice friendship, acquaintanceship, but it doesn't mean I owe him sex because he put in a few details into a computer and it regurgitated my chart. Interestingly, I've still got that chart lying around somewhere too, and when I look at it, I laugh about that creep. He was an Englishman too. Oh, he was a vile creep. Absolutely vile he was. Tried to dox me and insult me in every room. Just what? Because I wouldn't give him cyber sex. Based on what? We hadn't even formed any kind of relationship, never mind sexual. And by the way, I don't believe in cyber sex. I'm going to have sex, people, Earth. Has to be with a real man who's present and accounted for. Just saying. Dear goddess. All these fantasy fuckers that live in their dreams and their fantasies. Not one of them can even ask you out on a date or be real. It's like, are you serious? Fuck off. Seriously. But you kind of have to laugh because that's probably in my chart too, am I right? It's been a long history of that. Idiots fantasizing instead of turning up with the actual goods. Right, where are we going with that? Let's continue on. No good crying over spilt milk, literally. Milksops they were. Piss weak. Right, where were we? Right, we were reasonable to ask of astrology itself has any future. The chances of scientific recognition appear to be as remote now as they were half a century ago, when the Germans first began to investigate the territory with their traditional thoroughness. Today, at a guess, there may be up to 20,000 people in Western Europe and the USA who have a practical knowledge of astrological techniques, and even that figure may be too large. There is no evidence to suggest that the number of enthusiastic recruits is increasing. Finally, one can only hazard a guess that astrological beliefs will not disappear in the immediate future. There is no reason to suppose that the popular press will cease to provide its usual astrological pabulum, and for a long time to come there will presumably be individuals who are attracted to the study of this elusive and, in spite of its pitfalls, fascinating territory. See also articles on individual planets and zodiac signs written by Alec Howe. Further reading. Many books by astrologers are available in public libraries and bookshops. A detailed guide is M.E. Hone, The Modern Textbook of Astrology. For the zodiac signs and character analysis, see A.F. Seward, Zodiac and Its Mysteries, and R. Gledau, The Origin of the Zodiac. For help in reading an ephemeris, see J. Mayo, How to Read the Ephemeris. See also E. Howe, Astrology, The Story of Its Role in World War II. See Mackintosh, The Astrologers and Their Creed. And then my book does this very strange thing, offers me a plain black page. Oh, with my plain black lipstick I just smudged everywhere. Can't really see the glitter. Disappointed with that. Yes, I won't be buying from that company again. And then it gives me two more plain black pages. I'm not sure what that's about actually. And then yet another plain black page. And then it continues on with more articles about artists, which is rather random because that should have been with the other thing we read. But anyway, I will continue reading those even though they're out of sync with everything. It's very erotic, that painting. My goodness, just close my eyes. I will continue. We're near the end of the book, but I'll continue this tomorrow, beautiful people of planet Earth. And I'll maybe even complete the book tomorrow or the next day or the day after that. However it works, depends on what happens. Tomorrow's Wednesday. I have an appointment with psych and debrief, so that will take up some precious time, but it's all good because my time with him is indeed precious and worthwhile, and I've been doing it for over 25 years. So anyway, thus concludes today's reading. Was all on astrology. We knocked that one right out of the park, the whole chapter. And I hope you enjoy your evening wherever you are on planet Earth or any other interdimensional entities that receive these missives across time, space and dimensions. Hope you enjoyed me struggling struggling with the astrological terms. Oh, that was comical. It was really starting to grind my gears too. I feel better now I finished reading it though, because I pushed my way through like a Mustang quay. Push, 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 like I did when I made these earrings. And so there is that. And anyway, Lila Tov, good night. Have a wonderful evening. Bye for now.